Hello and welcome to the Patience to Prosperity podcast, where we learn how to act in opposition of our limiting beliefs in order to reach our fullest potential. Hi guys, it's Lizzie. I'm so glad that you guys found this podcast. Welcome back. I'm so excited to have you here. Today is going to be an interesting conversation because we're going to talk about something that I know that all of us go through at certain parts in our life, and especially if you're someone right now who's transitioning into, going to college for the first time, or maybe the second or third time, but just transitioning into a new year, as I am, or starting a new job, whatever it may be. Whenever we go through transitional periods of our life, the feeling of overwhelm comes in, and it can feel very consuming, and especially at times where you feel like you have even more to do and even more on your plate. Feeling overwhelmed is just putting us in this stagnant energy that makes us feel like we're not capable of doing anything. So if you are someone who is trying to navigate through overwhelm right now, or can just use some tips to help navigate through it in the future, then today's episode is for you. As some of you may know, we are in the season of the mountains, season 3, and the mountains, as I explained it in the first episode, they are so beautiful in all of their glory, and whenever I look at a mountain, it helps ground me so much, and especially now that I'm back at school, I'm surrounded by them constantly, and that really helps me deal with overwhelm is, stepping out into nature. But one thing that the mountains also can resemble is obstacles in our life, and I think that overwhelm not only can be its own obstacle in itself, but it also makes everything else that we're overwhelmed about feel like the biggest mountain we've ever come to in our entire life. So stick around for today's episode, and I'm just going to go over some reasons why we may feel overwhelmed and some tips and tricks on how I like to stay on top of things and kind of ease some of the all-consuming feelings that come with it. Because it is important to note that overwhelm is not an emotion. It's a response trigger to suppressed emotions being built up. So whenever we have a lot of emotions going on at once inside of us, that is when we kind of just place the word stress or overwhelm on everything that we're feeling. We're so quick to label our emotions as stress when we don't actually address what we're feeling. But we have to realize that emotions are tools. We feel things so deeply, and our emotions come up at such pivotal points in our journeys because they're trying to tell us what we're capable of handling, what putting too much pressure on ourselves looks like, how many things we can juggle at once, and in which areas we need to make some sort of modification to make our lives feel a little bit easier. Because when we neglect our own emotions, that's when overwhelm comes in. So if you are just going into a new part of your life right now, and you're expecting it to be exactly like the past, you're automatically setting yourself up to feel overwhelmed by everything that's on your plate right now. Because this stuff is new. Even if you've been through it in different forms before, maybe you're like me and this is your second year of college or your third or fourth. So it's something that you've been through before and you expected it to just be the same. I think that's what I'm going through right now, is kind of just like holding on to freshman year and thinking everything was going to be the same, but it's not, because I'm living off campus now. I'm not living in a dorm, and the dynamic is different, and it's a good different, but it still takes time to get used to. And I've recently been, feeling a lot of overwhelm, and I think it's self-inflicted from kind of just having the expectation set out in my head that everything was going to be the same as last year, even though subconsciously I knew it wasn't going to, but I was still holding on to it, which is a good thing. It's a beautiful thing. It just means that my freshman year was so good that I wanted to hold on to it for as long as I could, Moving on, it's just really important to be in touch with your emotions, Because when you're feeling overwhelmed, like I said, we just put a label on it as stress or overwhelm. We're not addressing the actual emotion or emotions that are moving through us. Because when an emotion comes up and we feel something really deeply, like we can't really shake it, we try to use things to distract us, whether it be drinking or smoking or, hanging out with your friends instead of doing what needs to get done, or watching a show, whatever it is. All that is good in moderation, right? But when we use that as a way to escape, as a way to distract ourselves, especially when we already are overwhelmed, it can lead to procrastination rather than facing our problems head on, which is when this emotional release is not able to come out and come into fruition. Because when an emotion comes through, it's asking to be released. That's why things like crying, you may have said this before, you may have heard someone say this before, that they need a good cry, right? But what is a good cry? Because we look at crying and we think that it's negative, right? It has a negative connotation to it, because you wouldn't be crying if you were really happy unless it was tears of joy. But all in all, even if it is tears of joy, it's a very emotional experience when tears actually come out of our tear ducts. And the reason why we feel better after we cry is because there is actually serotonin in our tears. And serotonin, for those of you that don't know, is a neurotransmitter, kind of like a stress hormone. And basically serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, all of that stuff, they're released at certain points in our life, whether we're, exercising, we release a lot of dopamine, or when you give someone a hug, that releases a lot of oxytocin. So like certain things that you do trigger certain neurotransmitters in us, and that's why we feel super high highs and super low lows. So things can trigger these neurotransmitters, these stress hormone responses in us that make us feel a type of way. And when we cry, we're releasing serotonin, which is actually a very happy chemical. It makes us feel very calm and relaxed. And it's similar to meditating or doing yoga. A lot of serotonin is released when doing those practices. And when we're crying, we're releasing that serotonin, and it makes us feel so much better. We feel so much calmer after. Like, have you ever cried and then after you cry your last tear, you just think to yourself, oh, that's all I had in me. Like, I'm good now. Like, I feel so much better now. I just need to decompress. It's almost like you're finally able to, like, take a deep breath. So kind of got off of a little tangent there, but there's your little neurotransmitter lesson for today if you didn't already know about them. Maybe I'll do a whole episode on them, who knows. But moving on, all in all, what I was trying to get to there was that when an emotion is coming up, it's asking for you to release it. And I'll do a whole episode on how to regulate your emotions and how to release them, but I do want to hone in on it for a second because it is so important, especially when you are feeling such overwhelm and so many emotions coming in at once that you can't even pinpoint one emotion that is coming through. Your body is looking for some regulation. It needs some help from you. It needs some guidance from you. It's confused right now. That's why you feel so overwhelmed. And going off of that, I think it's important to ask yourself when you are feeling what overwhelm feels like. When you're going through that in the midst of it, you need to ask yourself what emotion you are feeling most drastically right now. It's so important to ask yourself that question because, like I said, we're so quick to just labeling it as stress or overwhelm. But that is completely putting a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. And it's not going to heal the root. It's not going to heal our problem. It's just going to help us avoid it. And then it's only going to build up more and more until we reach our breaking point. And that's never fun. So moving on to the second reason why we may feel overwhelmed. Procrastination is huge when it comes to overwhelm. And I did a whole episode on procrastination in this season. So if you scroll back a few episodes, you'll be able to find that. But basically, when we're procrastinating, we're putting off things that we know we need to get done. And sometimes most of the time actually, I'd say it's because the task at hand is not something that we necessarily want to do. It's not something that seems super exciting for us. It's not something we're jumping at. And I think it's just really important to ask yourself the question, what are you avoiding? Because overwhelm comes from putting things off and letting things build up over time. And that doesn't make us feel good. It doesn't make us feel in control. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But I know for me personally, the times in my life where I feel like time is moving so slow and it's just dragging ass and I just cannot seem to shake that feeling is when I'm letting things pile up and I'm procrastinating all the things I know I need to do. But when time moves really fast is when I feel like I'm doing all of the things that I need to get done, and then it's opening up space for me to do the things that don't necessarily need to get done, but actually just make me feel good. So for example, like if I get all of my schoolwork done, I record an episode, I edit, and I make a lesson plan for my yoga class coming up this week. And then I have time to just take an hour out of my day to hang out with a friend or to watch a show. Then I feel like there's these spaces of time where time is moving at the pace that it's supposed to, and I'm letting it happen. Whenever I let things build up, I feel like I'm trying to control time. I'm trying to control the outcome of things. I'm trying to slow things down so that I have more time, but at the same time, like, it's moving so slow that it's almost debilitating because I still feel like I can't get anything done. And I think it's fair to say that as humans, we all feel a means of control. Like, we need control over things in our life, or else it makes us feel super high anxiety. It makes us feel like we're kind of losing our minds. Like, we really do feel that way sometimes, and I know at least I do. But then it's like, I know I have so many things piling up on me right now, and I don't feel like I even have enough time to do it because I'm looking at the long to-do list I have in front of me. And I'm thinking, how the hell am I supposed to get this done in 2 days? How am I supposed to put all of my energy? Because for me personally, I'm the type of person that has to put 100% of my effort in the things that really matter to me. So in terms of the podcast, in terms of my friendships, in terms of my practice of yoga, I have to put 100% of my effort into those things, or else I show up anxious. I show up feeling a lack of control. I show up feeling like I'm rushing the process. And that ultimately leads to me not putting my best foot forward and being dissatisfied with the outcome that I put out. So the question that I want to tackle here is, how do we actually manage these tasks when we feel like we're drowning? Because I know I'm not the only person who has felt that feeling of kind of drowning inside of your own body and not even really knowing where to go next, but knowing that you have so much on your plate. So one of the things that I like to do is to make a list of all of the things that are overwhelming me. And I know I just said to you that it's so hard sometimes to look at a long to-do list of all the things you have to do. So let me just go in a little in depth there. You not only have to make the list of all the things you have to do, but then you actually have to reassess your list and put in place by number the things that are most important at the top and the things that are least important at the bottom. So a good way to do that is actually to work by due date sometimes. So if you know you have some assignments to do for school or for work and they're due very soon, you put those at the top. If it's something that is just due in 2 weeks, but you can't stop thinking about it, it's okay to put that a little farther down your list, or maybe make a complete separate list of that big task that you have hanging on you right now and break that task down into very small, manageable steps. So for example, if the task at hand is a big speech that you have to do in front of a crowd of people in a few weeks, instead of putting on your list write and practice speech, because that can feel so consuming. That's such a big task. It feels so huge when you put that on paper. Break it down into some more steps. So maybe the first task would be like, open my laptop and brainstorm ideas or make a rough draft for 10 minutes. Some people work really well using time blocks and kind of giving themselves a time frame to work with. I'm not necessarily one of those people. I'm more of just like a listy person. But if you are the type of person that you know works well with that sort of time clock that I'm talking about, then maybe tell yourself to open your laptop for 10 minutes. Maybe step number 2 of creating this speech is doing some research online. Maybe step 3 is talking to a friend about it and getting some outside perspective. And if you're sitting here thinking, Lizzie, what do you mean? Like, how is that making this more manageable? You're just drawing it out way more. I feel like this is taking so much more time than it would to just face it head on. I would argue actually that you're taking less time. And also, it's not really about how much time it's taking at the end of the day. It's really not, because think about the amount of time that you just spend thinking about this task, not actually doing any hands-on work and getting it done. You spend so much time procrastinating it and just letting it consume your mind and make you anxious, when you could just be breaking down these steps into manageable, small tasks for yourself. And over time, you're not even thinking about how much time it's taking you. You're just taking it day by day, and all of a sudden you have a speech laid out for yourself. And now your last task is just to practice it until you feel ready. So I hope that example made some sort of sense to you. But it's really about just figuring out what works for you and breaking things down into smaller steps instead of clouding your head with some huge task that feels so unattainable at the time. But also reminding yourself that you have been through, you have completed, you have accomplished every single thing in your life that you once thought was impossible, that you once thought you were not capable of achieving. You did all of those things. You know that you can do them again. You know you can. And procrastination doesn't necessarily come from a place of not believing in yourself. It comes from a place of not caring about the task at hand as much as it takes to get it done, and to prioritize it above other things that make you feel a little bit better, that give you more of a dopamine boost, whatever it is. Stuff like that. There's multiple reasons for why we procrastinate, and like I said, I did a whole episode on that. So if you're looking for more reasons, go to that. But moving on to the next reason why we feel overwhelmed. Sometimes it's not the amount of tasks that we're overwhelmed by, but it's actually just one particular situation. And, life keeps on moving. Things still come up. If we have one really heavy task weighing on us or heavy situation, maybe, we just lost a friend. Maybe we're going through some complications in work that are coming up for the first time or whatever. But everything else is still moving, you still have all of your responsibilities on the back end of things. You still have to go grocery shopping every single week and find meals to make this week. You still have to make sure that you're tending to all your friendships the same way. Make sure you're showing up to work every Monday on time. All of the things that we have to do as adults, life keeps on moving. It can feel really overwhelming when one big thing is consuming us and we're just expected to keep on going. So in the case of one particular situation making us feel overwhelmed, we are most likely experiencing a lack of control. So it's important to ask yourself, what makes you feel in control? Because for me, some things that make me feel in control are, 1, facing all of my problems head on, not avoiding conversations, not avoiding the tasks I have at hand, even if I know they're hard. Another thing that makes me feel in control is when I'm actively making time, carving time out of my busy day to come back to myself, to regulate my emotions and whatever I need to. And rather than regulate, actually just be in tune with my emotions. Figure out what I'm actually feeling that day, because sometimes, I wake up and I'm go, go, go. And then by the end of my day, I feel so drained and I can't understand why. And then I realize I never really took the time to actually ask myself, like, how I'm doing today. And it's not every day that someone's going to come up to you and ask you how you are. And most of the time when someone does ask you that question, you're not going to respond truthfully. You're just going to say good every time, or okay, fine. Like, no one really goes into depth when they ask you that. It's kind of just like a conversation starter. So give yourself the grace of asking yourself that question. I also feel in control when I'm not relying on others to give me clarity or to accomplish tasks. For example, like if you have a gym partner, not relying on someone to get to the gym every day, actually tapping into my own discipline and motivation and being able to get myself out of bed and go to the gym every day instead of relying on someone else. That makes me feel in control. And it's important to note that what is in your control is what you do with your life, what you do, what decisions you make, because at the end of the day, everything is a decision. We don't consciously think that because we kind of just fall back on our routine and we get so used to just doing things every single day that it becomes kind of second nature. But at the end of the day, everything is a decision. What time you choose to get out of bed in the morning is a decision. What time you leave your house, what you make for breakfast, if you have breakfast before you leave. Whatever it is, every single thing that you do is a decision. And that is what is in your control. What is not in your control is how other people act or react to things. You cannot control someone else, no matter how much you try to. You cannot control someone else. And I just had to put that out there because I think it does go along with kind of relying on others to accomplish tasks that you've set out for yourself. You cannot control if someone else goes to the gym or not, or wakes up on time to go with you. So why would you rely on them to get done what you need to get done? Because you know that going to the gym is not something that, maybe it's a harder task for you, but you do it because you know you feel so much better after it. And when you're relying on someone else to do that task, you are now creating so much resistance, because now if they don't show up to the gym at the time that you did, you have to wait on them. Everything's on their time. And now you feel this ball of anxiety in your stomach and you don't know what to do, and because you relied on them for so long and you didn't even take the time to figure out, how to actually fend for yourself in the gym, how to ask people for help, what to actually do, how to use the machines, because you were just relying on this other person. And I'm just using this as an example. It could be in literally anything. I'm just using the gym as an example, but just notice how much you're relying on other people to get things done that truly means something to you, that you're doing for a reason because it makes you feel some type of way. So going back to the beginning where I was kind of talking about how, this is my second year of college now. I'm kind of trying to settle into a new routine, and, I'm going into this year with a lot of the same friendships as last year, and everything is the same, but it's different. And I'm feeling sort of a lack of routine and structure, and that's making me feel super out of control. It's making me feel very overwhelmed by everything because I have not yet settled into my routine. If this is where you're at right now, maybe not in my exact situation, but it just in the sense of, trying to find a new routine, something that I have been thinking about recently is actually just leaning into the more positive things. Because now I'm looking at it as, I have a new routine right now. I have a brand new house that I can decorate. I have a car now on campus and stuff like that. I have more freedom. And with that comes a lot more responsibility, yes. But putting that aside, looking at it as a fresh start, as a blank slate, as a way to reorganize your life and reprioritize the things that mean something to you. Because when we are so stuck in a routine constantly, And this is something that I felt a lot when I was living in my parents' home my entire life, throughout like middle school and high school and everything, when you're like, starting to grow up a lot and like your routine starts to like build upon itself and you add things to your routine as you get older because you have more responsibilities and more things to do and whatnot. I was unpacking all of my clothes that I brought to school this year, and I was, organizing my closet for the first time. And I remember saying to my roommate, you know what, like it usually overwhelms me so much to have to do these tasks, but right now, like I'm starting to think like it's actually kind of nice that I'm being given the opportunity to completely reorganize my space right now and completely restructure my life in any way that I want to, in any way that makes sense to me. Because something that worked for you in the past might not be working for you now. And it's things as simple as where you place your desk in your room that's going to make you the most productive. Because maybe last year you hated the spot where your desk was because, you need it to be in front of a window in order for you to get really locked in and focus on what you're doing. Little things like that, I think, are often overlooked because of the overwhelm that seeps in when we're trying to get into a new routine, get settled into a more structured life. Because if you're anything like me, routine and structure is so huge for me. It's what I fall back on at the end of the day. It's what keeps me sane. Like writing my lists and opening my planner and all that stuff it's a part of it. And without that, I feel like I'm going crazy all the time. I feel like I have nothing to fall back on, and I feel like everything is way too spontaneous for me. I need some sort of structure in my life. But going off of that, I feel like I'm going on so many tangents today, but I kind of love it. It's just, you guys are getting a little bit of what's going on inside of my brain right now at this current moment, trying to settle into my routine. And I hope that kind of gives you some clarity, trying to settle into yours right now, because I've said this on a few episodes before, but I feel like so many people just assume that, the people who are putting themselves out there, the people who have podcasts, the people who are content creators, whatever it may be, whatever you see in social media, whenever you see someone with like a perfect morning routine or something like that, you just assume that their life is perfect and they have no hiccups in the road. And on this podcast, I really just like want you guys to not think of me that way. Like I want you to look at me through the lens of how you see yourself and everyone else in your position. Like I want you to look at me as just another person that has experienced life and likes talking about it and loves, chit-chatting with you guys one-on-one about it. And my DMs are always open, so feel free to, shoot me a DM at Patience to Prosperity on Instagram. But moving on, I just think that focusing on what is working for you, and leaning into that rather than clouding your brain so much with the things you have to do and what's not working for you right now, I think that helps a lot when dealing with overwhelm, because now you're giving yourself some sense of clarity and some sense of reassurance that not everything is falling apart. You do have some things under control. You do have a grip on some of the things in your life. And the more you lean into those things, the easier it is to get a grip on everything else that feels out of place right now. So I kind of just want to go over some additional tips really quickly before I close out this episode today. But my next tip is just kind of confiding in a friend or a family member that makes you feel heard or understood, because they're not necessarily going to know exactly what you're going through. Maybe they know like the surface level of it, but they're not as in depth with their emotions, or they're not really thinking about it to the extent that you are. But especially if they are someone who's going through something similar with you right now, you're both going to gain something from the conversation when you open that up to them, because they will see things from your perspective, and you might actually be able to open them up more and get them to be a little more in touch with their emotions, which will, ease their minds a little bit more and help them feel a little less overwhelmed. So having a genuine, honest, heartfelt conversation is not something that you should ever regret or put on the back burner. I feel like communication is one of the most important things in our entire lives. And it is something that should not be overlooked at all. And that's not to say that you should be relying on someone else to make you feel understood, because like I said, not everyone is going to understand exactly what you're going through. But when someone just tries to understand you and meet you where you are, that shows you that they care about you. That shows you that they love you when they're just trying to understand how your brain works. That shows such a level of curiosity, which then translates to love. Because if someone is curious about you, if someone is curious about how your brain works and how you're feeling, they care about you a lot. So moving on, giving yourself that kind of understanding and making yourself feel heard without another person being in the picture now. You have to ask yourself constantly, what do you need? What do you need in this moment? What do you need? I have to ask myself that question literally like 30 times every single day. Because, I'm a girl who deals with a lot of anxiety, which makes it even easier to feel so overwhelmed sometimes. And, I put a lot on my plate, and there's weeks where I feel like I'm a superhero and I can tackle everything all at once and I feel amazing. But then there's also weeks, being a female, like your hormones really dictate how you feel week to week. And I go through times where I'm a lot less motivated. I have a lot less energy to do things. And I have to completely rely on my own devotion to myself. It really comes down to the devotion you have to yourself. Because if you love yourself more than anything in this world, if you truly, truly love yourself, you will do whatever it takes to make you feel understood, to make you feel safe in wherever you are in your life, to make you feel a sense of control over the things in your life. Because, I did mention a lot about control today, and I think that's an episode that I will do in the future. But at the end of the day, life is not really about how much you can control. It's not, because we can't control most things. Most things are completely out of our control. But it's about controlling the controllables. But that's not to say that there won't be hiccups in the road. That's not to say that sometimes, we get a little bit off of our routine because our car broke down, because we lost a loved one, because a friendship is failing. Whatever it is, things come up, and that's why we need to understand how to come back to ourselves, how to regulate our emotions, and how to ask ourselves what we need constantly. When we're feeling good, when we're feeling bad, when we're kind of unsure about how we're feeling, you have to ask yourself what you need in that moment. Because sometimes it's as simple as, I need a good shower right now. I need to just wash everything off, wash all the negativity off, get in some comfy clothes, sit down on my bed and watch a show. Sometimes it's, actually what I need to do right now is the tasks that I've been putting off, because once I finish all of my assignments, I'm going to feel a lot better. And now I'm actually going to feel like I can rest, because when we let things build on for so long, we can't actually rest when we're taking these times to ourselves, because we know we have so much to do. So that's all that I have for you guys today. I hope that if you are someone who is experiencing overwhelm right now, or you have experienced it in the past, you're going to experience it in the future, that one, it becomes a lot more clear to you before it even comes through, based on how much you're putting on your plate, based on the lack of effort you're putting into feeling all of your feelings. Whatever it is, I hope that this episode helped you in some way. And if it did, please shoot me a DM at Patience Prosperity on Instagram and chit chat a little bit with me. I would love to talk about your personal feelings right now, your personal struggles, what you're going through, and help you navigate some feelings of overwhelm. Because like I said, it helps both of the people in a conversation when they're going through similar things to talk through it. With that being said, I do want to mention that in every episode that I record, in the description below, I actually implement some journal prompts that I make up myself based on what I talk about in the episode. And I think they can be really helpful when trying to, tackle all of the things that I talk about in episodes, because I know that, going back to Overwhelm, I know it can feel super overwhelming when you're just kind of being thrown a lot of different perspectives at once that maybe you haven't thought about, and trying to navigate that all alone. So I think the journal prompts are a good way to approach whatever it is you're feeling that has to do with the episode that you chose to click on that day. So go check that out in the description below. I will also have my TikTok and my Instagram down there at Patience Prosperity if you want to check those out. I tried to post, some encouraging things on my social platforms, trying to make that a place where people feel safe, where people feel drawn to for some positive affirmations and thoughts that can help them feel at ease throughout their lives. That's all I hope to do in this life, honestly, with my platforms. I'm gonna quit yapping. I'll let you get to that, but I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next Monday with another exciting one. Bye!